Okay, so good morning, everybody. We're here on Facebook Live, and I have my special guest this morning on Tell Me More, Mr. John BELAND.
Hello, Kel-Anne.
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're out here in the wine country in Northern California.
Oh, you'd love that.
I just moved here, and it's beautiful. It's very hot out today, but it's still wonderful, you know.
Oh, fantastic.
And how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. We're in cold weather here. You've got the sunshine in the summer, and we've got the cold. But I'm really good.
I miss Australia so much. You know, it's been years since I've been there.
Yeah. How long has it been?
Yeah, it's been, gosh, it's got to be about almost, the last time I was there, I was in Byron Bay recording with Glenn Sharrock and Brian Catt.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And like Brian says, a lot of corkscrews lost their lives in that process.
Oh my gosh. Have you still got the glass that I gave you 20 years ago? Is it broken by now?
Do I still have what, Kel-Anne?
The wine glass that I bought you at Maroochydore.
Oh, you know what? It probably got lost in one of the many moves that I made it since you and I last spoke.
I know, 20 years. It's a long time to keep a glass.
I'll have to come back for another one. You know?
Yeah. Oh, it's so good to catch up with you. Yeah, like we said, it's been 20 years, and it was amazing how we met. I don't know if you remember, John, but I was flown to Queensland to do a show, and they told me there was going to be a band. And when I turned up, the stage was bare. And I said to Cash Backman, because he was organising it, and I think Mike Smith was hosting.
Oh, okay.
And I said to Cash, "Where's the band?" And he said, "No, there's no band." I said, "Oh no, I brought all my music. I don't have any backings with me."
Oh, gosh.
And he said, "Oh, look, don't worry. We've got plenty of guitarists in the room. We'll find somebody to play for you." And that's all they said. And then,
oh my God.
And then they said, "Oh, we've found the perfect guitarist for you, John BELAND." And that's all they said, but they didn't tell me, you know, who. They told me your name, but they didn't tell me who you were. Yeah. And then you came in the room, and we're going through the music, and I think I did the night they drove old Dixie down in there, and you say, "Oh yes, I knew Joan, I did this and I did," and you're saying all this stuff about it, and I did a Linda Ronstadt, and you're talking about Linda. And I'm thinking, who does this guy think he is? Saying he knows all these people. I had no idea. And then afterwards, Mike Smith took me to the side and he said, "Do you know who that was?" And I said, "Well, not really." I said, "But I had so much fun. We had such a great time." He said, "He's a great guitarist." And then he told me, and I thought my knees were going to buckle. I said to him, "Thank God you didn't tell me beforehand," because I had always been such a Linda Ronstadt fan. And Dolly and Chris Christopherson and all these people, and then to find, you know, how and Rick Nelson, and then to find how, you know, involved you were with them, that was just so crazy. And then anyway, so we hit it off, didn't we? And then you and your manager at the time spoke to me and said that, you know, you wanted to produce me, and it was about a year later, oh no, less than a year later, probably about 6 or 7 months later, we actually went into the studio.
I remember it, and it was great. My manager was a guy named Wayne Budge at the time, if I'm not mistaken, and who's now really a world-renowned photographer.
I've seen that on Facebook, John. How amazing is that? What a change!
I mean, it's amazing. He was smart. He got out of managing singers like myself, and he started taking pictures, and his photos have been around the world and in magazines and
big exhibitions.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, in big exhibitions everywhere and everything. So yeah, it's but it has been 20 years. So a lot of people have changed, especially over the last couple of years. We've all changed and pivoted and done different things, haven't we?
Not us. We still look like we're in our 20s.
Of course.
In my mind, I am.
Yeah, well, exactly. I still feel the same. And my grandmother was in her 90s. She turned 95, and I said to her, how she asked me, how old am I today? And I said, how old do you feel? And she said, oh, I feel 16. I still feel 16. I said, well, there you go. That'll do. Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's really funny because I did a concert a couple of days ago near here, and my daughter Jennifer and my son Tyler came to it, and and they were helping me out backstage, and they were so concerned about me, like okay, Dad, now be careful here going up this stage, and be careful here. Is there anything you need, Dad? Okay, and I kind of liked it, I kind of like sitting back and having my kids jump around and doing all the work for me,
That's so nice. That's so nice.
It is good. Yeah. So
because you've spent most of your life, John, traveling, doing shows.
Yeah.
Haven't you?
Well,
so to have this time with your family is so great.
Yeah, it's really great now that I'm older and my kids are older too. It just amazes me how wonderful people they turn out to be, and that really beats trying to have a hit record or trying to be successful in music. I mean, to know that your kids grew up to be really decent people, and that really is to me, that's the cream on the cake. So
I'm the same. With me, health and family are the priority. I've got I had 2 children. I've still got the 2 children that I had before, but now I've got 8 grandchildren.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they start sprouting out all over the place, It's really crazy, And I have a son that I have a son that I didn't even know about until I guess it was about 10 years ago when I was in Melbourne producing somebody doing an album. And I got a letter from this boy's mother saying that I think I don't want anything from you, she said. I just want to let you know that I think my son could be our son.
Oh, wow.
And she had a link to a website where he was singing. He was a singer. So my vanity made me hit the link. And the first picture that showed up on the screen was he looked exactly like my father. He was it was almost like a clone of my dad.
Wow.
Anyway, to make a long story short, it turns out that he's an amazing singer-songwriter and lives in Northern California. He's got a big following. He just signed a record deal last week.
Oh,
and
wow.
He's the most wonderful, kind human being that I've ever met in my life. And we're both very close to each other now.
Oh,
and
that is so good.
His name is Chris BELAND, and he's on Facebook. So everybody look him up because he's really great.
Oh my gosh, that is one.
Yeah.
I've seen photos of you with Chris, but I didn't know that backstory. So, oh my gosh, that is beautiful.
Yeah, it was, I was in Australia when I found out. I was in the middle of a session, and I was producing a guy named Wuzzy James, and we were right in the middle of a mix down when the results from the DNA test came in, and when they came in and said I was the father, we all ran out and got drunk just like I had a newborn baby, and yeah,
Oh,
it was
I
really
love it.
something, But he's a great kid, and he's got 2 great kids that are my grandchildren now, and it's like life is great. It's amazing
beautiful.
the surprises you find in life,
Yeah, you never know.
You never know,
No.
So.
So where were you born, John? Where were you born? Where did it all start?
I was born in a little town in Illinois called Hometown, and it's southwest of Chicago. And it's a little town like right out of a storybook, like Mayberry, and we lived there for 16 years, and it was magic growing up there. And then my family moved to California.
Oh, so how old were you when you went to California?
I was 16. I was 16 when I moved to California with my parents. We took the train from Chicago to LA, and when we arrived in California, I hated it. I wanted to move back to Chicago because I had a girlfriend back there, and I had a band, and I had all my friends, and I didn't know what I was going to do in California. And so I tried running away to get back home a number of times, and my dad kept catching me. And so finally, one day I changed directions and I ran away to Hollywood, and I stayed there, and I kind of lived on the streets for about a couple weeks, and then I wound up at the Troubadour on an open mic night singing, and a husband and wife production couple came in, and they saw me, and they literally got me off the street. They called my parents who were out looking for me, and they decided that they would take me in as kind of like their son. And so
Wow.
from that moment on, and my mom and dad agreed we had to go down to court and sign the first contract, and I was underage. And but right after I signed with them, I got a gig on the Glenn Campbell show doing the warm-ups for the audience, and then Engelbert Humperdinck recorded one of my tunes, and that brought me some much needed money so I could get my first little apartment. And then from there I met Linda Ronstadt, and then it all escalated to all the people that I worked with over the years. So I was very, very fortunate and lucky to be taken in by these two wonderful people.
My gosh, yeah, your life could have been totally different if they hadn't have found you.
A totally different plan. And luckily for me, they were very disciplinarian as far as the recording studio went. They taught me everything, and they really let me have it if I was clowning around or doing something out of it. So everything I learned in the beginning was from the Daltons were their name, Dan and Lois. And they were previously, they were in a group called the Back Porch Majority, which was a very famous folk ensemble. And they went off on the road and became a production team. And they were producing, commercials and TV show themes and stuff. And so they took me in, got me an apartment, literally raised me in the music business, taught me publishing, taught me songwriting. And then I started getting some work, and that's how it kind of started for me.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a good thing that I changed directions and went to Hollywood instead of back to hometown,
Well, yeah, my goodness. So what inspired you to be a musician? Was anyone in your family into music? What started it?
Amazingly, nobody in my family touched music. And I say that amazingly because today I've got grandchildren that are singers. I've got my son and my daughters are singers. One's a DJ. I got a son that's a producer. I mean, but it started with me, I think, and they always say that the apple never falls far from the tree. So that's kind of what happened. But I'm very proud of all of them, and it really gives me a kick to not only see them doing their musical thing, but they're all incredibly great. I got a daughter that sings like Bessie Smith, and I got a son that sounds like James Taylor, and I mean, it's so funny to just sit back and watch all this stuff blossom and grow.
It's amazing. Yeah. How old were you when you realized that you wanted to do music? How old would you have been?
Oh, I wanted to be probably when I was about 10 years old. I remember watching Ozzie and Harriet TV show, and watching at the end of the show, Ricky Nelson singing and his guitar player, and I that's what I wanted to do. I used to look at that and think, boy, what a great job that would be. And as fate would have it, I ended up being Ricky's guitar player.
You ended up having that job. Playing guitar for Ricky.
Out doing TV with Ricky in 1979 and playing all the hits that I listened to and watched when I was 10 years old, And
how amazing is that? That is just
it's pretty fun, pretty freaky,
Well, yeah. Well, you set your mind on it and you aimed at it.
Yes, it's kind of like a Twilight Zone movie, I keep thinking Rod Sterling's going to be in the hallway thinking.
Tell us the story. Tell us the story about Swamp Water and Linda, and you'd said it to me about the blind date side of it and everything. Tell that story.
Well, I met Linda I was in a group that rehearsed in Topanga Canyon. It was the first band I was in. That was a very popular band, and I replaced the guitar player who had passed away, and so I was the youngest in the group. And one of the guys in the band was dating this girl who lived in Topanga Canyon, and she lived with a roommate. So one day, his name was Nigel, and he said, "Hey kid, we're going to a party tonight, and I've got a blind date set up for you." And I said, Nigel, I don't want to go out on a blind date. You know, those things are always end up, you know, terribly. He says, "You're going to like this." So anyway, we went to his girlfriend's house, you know, and it was an old rustic house in Topanga Canyon. You had to walk up these long flights of wooden steps. And we knocked on the door, and I asked Nigel, I said, "Well, who's my date? What's her name? At least tell me her name." And Nigel, who looked like David Niven, he was very suave, you know, says, "Oh, it's Linda Ronstadt." And I went, "Linda Ronstadt?" I was like totally freaking out, you know. I mean, Linda was like the dream of everybody at the Troubadour, you know. They all wanted to go out with her. Anyway, I was panicked, but she came out, and from the minute I saw her, we hit it off fabulously, and then I ended up starting her first solo band, Swamp Water, and she had just turned solo. So it was exciting because in the beginning of the year we did a few gigs, but as the year progressed and her celebrity rose, the gigs got bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden we were out there playing Carnegie Hall and the Fillmore, and out on the road with groups like the Byrds, and
Wow.
no, I mean it was 1970, and she was just fabulous. I mean, she'd walk on stage, and our little 4-piece band backed her up, and she was so good that nobody could follow her, you know.
Yeah.
She was just you had to see it to believe it, and she was so sweet. I mean, I love Linda, I still do, and it was a springboard for me totally, because of that gig I started getting a lot of calls for recording work and stuff like that. So I guess Linda was really the main part of my career, and I just love her to death. She was always funny, and we were all in it for the music. We never thought about how much we were making, but it was all about just the music and the whole period at the time, 1970. It was such a volatile year, and
Wow.
there we were out on the road in our rent-a-cars and playing colleges and folk clubs and symphony halls, and it was some experience. I was 20 years old, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, I was pretty young. So
That's amazing. It's amazing.
yeah.
And then how did you end up working with Rick? How did that evolve?
How did I end up with what?
Working with Rick Nelson. How did that
Well,
evolve?
with Rick, it was great. Well, the guitar playing spot opened up for Rick, and his manager called me up in 1978 and wanted to know my style of guitar playing was similar to his guitarist James Burton, and so they called me up and they asked if I'd be interested, and of course I'd be interested. It was like a dream of mine to even meet Rick, you know.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, I took the gig, and we just went on the road and played everywhere with Ricky. He was the warmest, friendliest, funniest guy that I had ever worked with. We became really good friends, and I ended up playing on a number of his albums and co-writing with him. And it was really the high point of my life. When people ask me, like, who was your favorite artist to work for? Hands down, it was working with Ricky. The excitement and tension was there every night. You know, girls would be screaming, and you know, the teenagers had grown up with him, and now they were beautiful women. You know, and they were still running on the stage trying to get him and everything. And it was pretty exciting, and I loved it. And I got to do Saturday Night Live with Ricky, and a number of really great TV shows. And
Wow.
so that was a big high point in my career.
It's so good to hear that these people are nice and sweet in real life as well, because they seem to be that way when we see them, either, you know, on TV or whatever. But to actually hear how nice they are, it's really good.
Well, people are always asking me, like, who didn't you like to play for? And I say, well, everybody. I know this sounds really corny, but just about everybody I work with treated me so excellent, and were so nice to me, and helped my career. And so I don't have any names that I could bring up that were maybe Brian Cadd, but that would be about I'm just joking, of course.
It was so funny, John. When we were talking about what we're going to put on my album back in 2003, you said it a couple of times to me. I'll bring Brian in, and he'll do a song with you, and da 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 da. And one day I didn't want to act stupid, so one day I got up the courage and I said, "Who's Brian?" You said, "Brian Cadd." Oh, okay. And then I was so happy to meet him, and it was just wonderful.
Well, Brian, the thing with Brian, I met him when he came over to the States back in 71, and he was kind of a fan of what we were doing with Linda, and I was a fan of his music that I had heard through a friend of mine. Now, I didn't realize how big he really was, and when he came to LA, really nobody really knew who he was, and but we hit it off instantly, and we became the best of friends starting in 1970. And I didn't realize it until I went to Australia once and was hanging out with him, and people were stopping him on the street asking for his autograph, and I kept thinking, "Oh, that's Brian! Wow, And but he is and remains my best friend that I've ever had in the whole world. He's like a brother to me.
Yeah.
We've traveled around the globe producing acts and doing concerts. We went to China together and produced the first country album that was ever recorded in China. And
wow.
It was him and I used to tell him that he and I are like the Hope and Crosby of country rock, And but he's my son's godfather, and I love him to death. There's no better person on the planet than him. And I would never tell him that. So let's keep this between.
I haven't seen him for a few years. I was at a luncheon with him a few years back now, and
You're the same.
He's just laid back.
He performs a lot with Glenn Sharrock. They still do concerts together, and he's still, if you're gonna go out for the night and drink wine and have a good time, you got to do it with Brian Cadd, because he the two of us are not short of any stories, and so it usually ends in a pretty fun evening, I tell you. And my kids love Brian. They think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and so I have nothing but loving things to say about that guy.
Yeah, it was a big thrill for me doing that song with him, Legend in the Making.
Yeah, I bet. That's great.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, well, he was a lot like Ricky as far as I just clicked instantly when I met Brian, and the same was with Ricky. I knew Ricky's music so well that in certain cases I knew it better than he did, and it really helped when we were getting together his new show for Vegas and stuff, and we started doing all the old records that he had sung in about probably 15 years, and we started pulling out all of these great songs of his, and his show was so great live. I mean, people were just blown away by it, hit after hit after hit, and he looked fabulous, Rick.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, he was pretty drop dead gorgeous, and so as soon as Rick hit the stage, the screams and the yells, and it was pretty electric, And, I miss him. He was a dear friend of mine.
Yeah, gone too soon. How did you meet Dolly? Because I know you're still friends with Dolly Parton today.
Oh yeah.
So how did that happen?
Well, I just saw Dolly. I recorded with her 2 years ago. We did another version of Coat of Many Colors together in Nashville. I met Dolly when she was the opening act for Mac Davis, who I was playing guitar for, and we just started talking between shows, and not too many of the guys backstage were very friendly to Dolly. They considered her kind of a hillbilly, and it was very, very cruel.
Yeah.
And I wasn't happy with the situation with the Mac Davis camp. So the two of us would end up together in the hallway talking about, how we didn't like this and didn't like that. And then we became very close as friends. And then one day she just said, "Well, why don't you come play guitar for me then?" And I said, "I'm going to do that." And it's just what I did. I came back to LA and after a tour with Mac, and I turned in my notice and went out with Dolly. And that was right at the time when she released "Here You Come Again."
Oh wow,
And
I love that
and
song.
then 9 to 5, 9 to 5 had just come out, and so she was tremendously popular that year.
Yeah.
And she was popular to the point where it got to be too big for me. There were so many people in her camp that were taking care of her that the personal relationship of being able to just walk up to her and talk was kind of gone now. And so reluctantly, I left Dolly to join Ricky.
Mm.
And Dolly was so sweet and supportive of it, and to this day, she's one of my dearest friends in the world.
Mm.
She's a real deal.
Yeah, that's good to hear as well, because we all love Dolly.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, good.
So, okay, so that's some of the stories. That's some of the stories and some of the artists you've worked with, but you've worked with so many more than that. Chris Christopherson and heaps. The list goes on and on and on. I know.
A friend of mine used to introduce me. This country singer Bobby Bear used to introduce me on stage with. He'd say John's worked with Waylon Jennings, Buck Owens, Ricky Nelson, Linda Ronstadt. It just goes to prove one thing: the guy cannot hold a job.
I love it. It's so good.
So, but I've been very, very lucky to have played with all these people. I still can't believe it sometimes. Even when I'm looking up at the walls and see the pictures, looking down in my studio,
even Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks loves you.
Garth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked at Friends in Low Places with Garth, and he, at the time, Garth was only making about, I think they were paying Garth about $35 a song to sing the song demos. And one of the demos we did together was "I've Got Friends in Low Places."
Oh.
And then the following year, I love Garth. He's a great guy and he's really sweet. But I never would have guessed he would be as big as he ended up being. And a lot of that was because when he was doing demo sessions in Nashville, he was always very kind of quiet and very humble man. And I always thought he was kind of like introverted, And the next thing I know, he's flying on a wire in some gigantic baseball stadium with screaming, kids. For me, I was so thrilled when he made it. It was so electric that year because we were watching Garth literally explode in the music business. And a funny story is I saw him on TV on the Grand Ole Opry. He had just made his first appearance, so I sent him a fax to his manager, and I said in the fax, "Garth, I just watched you on TV, and I'm so excited for you, and we're really in your corner, and go get it, man, and good for you, Garth." And about a couple days later, I get a letter in the mail, and the letter says, "Dear Garth Brooks fan, although Mr. Brooks is very, very busy right now and can't get to every letter, we would like to invite you to join his fan club for $25. I went, what the heck, So I get to the fax machine again, and I write another fax, and I send it off to his manager. And I said, his manager, Bob Doyle. And I said, "Bob, I tell him the story of what happened." He says, "Well, let me give this to Garth." And Garth was so embarrassed that happened to me that a couple days later, I get another thing in the mail, and it's a long tube. And I go, "What the hell? What's it?" And I open it up, and it's a big poster of Garth with his guitar, and he had signed on it, to John, here's to the good old days when only you would play my song.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and I got it hanging in my house. In fact, it's around here somewhere. I'll pull it out. I can show it to you. Oh yeah, here it is. Hold on, let's see if you can see this.
Okay.
Slide over here. Did you see that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, we were all thrilled for Garth, as
Ah.
you could imagine. He was one of our crowd. So yeah, I've been very lucky with all of these people that I work with. Merle Haggard, work with Johnny Cash. I keep thinking like any minute, like I'm going to wake up and somebody's going to say, "Boy, you were asleep for a long time."
and
I got to work
apart
with.
from, yeah,
I got to work with you.
you did.
Yeah, so there you
go. Oh, look, it's just not. I mean, you're great at being a producer, absolutely amazing, and great guitarist and musician. I saw you play other instruments other than guitar. I mean, you can play them all.
Yeah, well,
but
I
also
do.
songwriter. I mean, you're the most beautiful songwriter. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Oh, they're just the most gorgeous songs, and I know a lot of people have recorded your songs. I'm lucky to be one of them. But yeah, that is such a gift.
Well, when I was raised by the Daltons back in the '60s, they instilled it in me that I should first and foremost approach songwriting in my career, because they told me that, you may get some hit records and you may get some notoriety, but eventually that stops. But songwriting, you can continue that to you're 100 years old.
Yeah.
So I loved songwriting, and when people started recording my tunes, oh my God, it was great. And I actually started seeing money from it too. That was incredibly great, But when I used to get my my songwriting statements from BMI, you can look on the statement and it'll tell you what countries were playing your songs. And it used to just blow me away that somebody in Africa was playing a song of mine, and a real thrill. So yeah, songwriting has been a big thing with me over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful songs. So out of all, okay, you've worked with some amazing people, but were there any people at that time that you wished you had have worked with, but you didn't get the chance to?
Yeah, I had a real close call to working with Elvis.
Oh.
And I had been working with Elvis's band and his conductor Joe Gershio for a couple of years in the studio on commercials and stuff. And one day Joe called me up right around Christmas in 1976, and he said, "Hey, how'd you like to work with Elvis?" He called him E. "How'd you like to work with E?" And I thought he was joking, and he said, "No, James Burton, his guitar player." Once again, James Burton, his guitar player, decided to leave Elvis, and he was going to go with Emmylou Harris, who had just signed a record deal with Warner Brothers. Oh. So James was leaving, and they needed a guitar player that sounded like James, So I took the gig, and I got ready to get measured for my suit. I learned the songs, and right when the gig was supposed to happen, James decided he was going to go back with Elvis.
Oh.
And so I missed it, by that much.
Yeah.
And but I think more than Elvis, I really wanted to over the years. One of the big gigs I always wanted was to play for the Everly Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
I knew Don and Phil. I worked with them both as solo acts, but together, I thought I would have loved to have been in their band when they made their comeback in England. Yeah. So
what about today?
They were my favorites, the Everly Brothers. They were like,
were they?
For me, they hung the moon. I could never get enough of them. I thought that they were, not only did they look cool with those big guitars and stuff, but their singing just like took you to another level.
Their harmonies were just beautiful, weren't they?
Oh, just absolutely. I got to sing with Don. We did a duet together, and that was really neat. That was cool. Whenever I work with these iconic people, I always had to the hardest thing about working with them was trying to maintain my coolness. and not come off like a big dope in the studio, like, oh, wow, Don Everly. Oh, you know?
That's how I felt
So
with you and Brian
that
Cass.
that was the hardest thing about working with all these big people, was trying to be really cool and going, yeah, sure. And meanwhile, I got a little voice in my head saying, that's Don Everly
Yeah.
you're talking to. That's Ricky Nelson. That's Merle Haggard. You know, so that was always a challenge. You know, but I love
trying
the
to
Everly
keep
folks.
calm. Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
What about today, John? What artists today would you like to work with?
Today, I don't know. You know, I don't even really know if I really desire to work with anybody anymore. I mean, I most of my time these days is spent either working in my studio with producing different artists, sometimes artists from overseas like Norway, and I get the thing about backing up artists and playing with them. I kind of gave that up after I went with the Bellamy brothers for a while, and they were just gone so much I didn't have a home life. So I decided after that I was going to just kind of run on my own clock, you know. So there's nobody out there really that completely annihilates me that I would want to do it again. But I've done it so much and for so long that the glamour of it is gone. So
yes,
you know,
that's more the
for young-
studio.
right? Yeah, the studio. I'll always love the studio. That's really I never get tired of recording and working on somebody's sessions. So that's what I like. And also, I'm an author now. I've got 2 books out, and
That
that's
was
a
my
big deal.
next question. I was going to tell everyone that you're an author
I've
as
actually
well.
written 2. I've written 2 books, and somewhere back in hometown Illinois, there's a English teacher who's spinning around in her grave right now because I've turned into an author. And I was like our worst student, you know. But I was shocked and amazed at the response from the first book. The first book was called Best Seat in the House, and it's all about my career. There's a lot of photos from my own archive collection, and it got 5 stars across the board to this day on Amazon. And then the follow-up is called Pass the Guitar and I'll Tell You a Story. The Further Adventures of John Beelan.
Love
and,
it.
And that's a follow-up to, and you can get both those books off of Amazon books.
What I might do is put some links into the comments so people can have a look, because to hear more beautiful stories and more details about all these things, they can read it all in your books and see the pictures as well. I know I've seen some of the photos of you on stage with Linda and with all these people, but to actually have it in the book, fantastic. So I'll put that in the,
it is fantastic. I mean, nowadays I'm doing these concerts periodically of they're kind of like book concerts where I tell a lot of stories on stage and play some of the songs I've written for people. And I'll tell you what, it is so great. They love the stories, and because it touches their hearts, you know. I mean, like music does. But after the show, usually I sign books out in the lobby, and I hear the sweetest, nicest thing from people who may have seen me play with, you know, maybe Ricky back in the '70s or Christopherson or whatever. And so it's for me, and it's so rewarding writing the book. Writing the first book was a really incredible experience because I had to kind of retrack myself and talk about you know, growing up and my mom and my dad and family. So it was an amazing experience, you know. Yeah, and the books are still doing real good.
Yeah, and I you know, it's something for your family to cherish for so long.
Absolutely. Well, that was my original intent. I wanted to leave a book behind for my kids to read, and it turned out to do better than I actually thought. So, yeah, both books are doing real good.
That is so good. They'd be so proud of you, John, with everything you've done.
Thank you.
And you know, you're one of the good guys. You're a beautiful human being at the same time.
All this flattery, I mean, my head is going to be exploding.
You'll need a bigger hat.
Yeah, well, we'll be being a Leo, you know, we thrive on that. So keep it up. That's good. No, I'll be this July. I'll be. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'll be 73 this year.
Wow.
And for me, it's like, you know, like I remember going to bed when I was 30, and then all of a sudden I woke up, I was 73, and what happened, you know? And
Yeah.
Brian, every time I talk to Brian, I think, like, I always think of that Paul Simon tune, Old Friends, you know,
Yeah.
because we've been through so many decades of music, you know, and so many adventures. And
So yeah, a lot of adventures, you guys.
some we can't talk about, but
exactly. I heard some
we went through a lot of adventures, a lot of ex-wives, a lot of Merlot, and a hell of a lot of music. And,
I remember when he came into the studio, you were dating somebody at the time, and you know, you were talking to Brian about it, and then he said, "Not another girl singer, John."
and I know who the person was, and I'm not going to.
Yeah, not going to say.
Yeah,
it was just.
Well, I have to tell you, Kel-Anne, my Achilles heel are girl singers. So you know, it's always been my weakness over the years, and I never seem to learn my lesson. But anyway, yeah, that was
it was a
when I saw you.
Pardon?
Now I'm doing great. I've had the same girlfriend for 17 years, and she's back in Texas, but she's British, and we for some reason that was the one that stuck, you know.
She's
and,
beautiful.
Her name's Polly.
Yeah, I've seen you with pictures of her and everything on Facebook, and she looks lovely.
Amazing. Oh, it's amazing, you know, and I'm so fortunate to have her in my life. So, but I was pretty much of a scamp, you know. Both Brian and I, we were pretty naughty boys when we were growing up in the music business, you know. I always say, well, you know, it's always really a kind of a difficult thing when you all of a sudden you go from being obscure to you're on a stage, and beautiful women are talking to you,
paying attention to you. Yeah.
Great restaurants, great treatment and stuff, and it's easy to get seduced by all that, you know. And, especially when you're young, you know.
Yeah, and you were very, very young at the time. So so record producer, great guitarist, singer, songwriter, and now an author. What is your vision of the future? Where do you want to go from here? What plans have you got in place?
Well, I want to write another book. I'm giving that some thought now. And I like to play these small, intimate venues and listening rooms, and I'll always love doing that. And that's about it. You know, I just want to watch my kids. They're all blossoming into these great musicians and singers, and I don't know where I'm going to end up. You know, living wise. And right now, I live in this really incredible, beautiful house in Sebastopol, California, and it's really great. But I don't know. I don't know what the future is going to hold as far as my location goes. I may stay here, or I may, you know, move closer to LA. I don't know. But right now, life is really great. I got the most beautiful house. I actually live here with my brother and his wife, and so it's kind of neat to be back in the fold again with family around me.
Yeah,
I really miss that, and so now I've got my kids around me. Chris is close by, and so you know that's really good.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I'm so glad that you're able to still do your work and still produce people, but you still can be around family at the same time. You can go and perform when you want to. It's beautiful.
It is, and it's nice. It's nice to no longer have that anxiety of being a solo artist or anything. You know, I can relax and do what I do, and not have to worry about career decisions and stuff like that. You know, so and when I'm not doing the concerts, when I'm home, I play acoustic guitar on my classical guitar at wineries and little bistros and stuff, and I love doing that. You know, just sit in the chair and strum the guitar, drink a glass of Merlot or two, and people tell me how fabulous I am, and I go home. You know?
Yeah, and you get paid for it.
It's a nice job.
Yeah, it's really
good.
It
only took 73 years to get to that level.
Oh, well, it has been so great catching up with you, John.
Oh, it's so sweet to
So
see
great.
you again, kiddo. You look fabulous, and I've when I see you, I've missed you. I would love to get back there again. Brian keeps trying to come up with these these plans on trying to get me over there again. So
Yeah.
I think I'm due for one more visit down under, and I definitely want to
We'll have to
see
catch up.
you, and I'm so glad that everything's going great for you too. It's I see you, and it seems like only yesterday when we were doing your album.
I know. I think back then I had the really, really short bleach blonde all over hairdo then. And then I had stripes for about 15 years. And then with COVID, I just let my hair grow. And
I think your hair looks great like that. It's
thank
fabulous.
you. Thank you. I haven't had it cut for 2 years or 2.5 years now.
Don't change it. I think it looks.
I feel like
it's
Rapunzel,
absolutely
just keep growing.
Yeah, same here with mine.
Yes,
I've
yes.
lost quite a bit up here, and I blame that on I blame that on having kids. But it's great talking to you too. I mean, I was really thrilled that you asked me to be a part of your show, and I know you're going to do terrific on it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I just want people to get to know other people. We can learn, we can be inspired, and I can promote your things at the same time. So as I said, I'll put in the comments, I'll put in the links for your website, and
yeah,
also
that's just
for your
the website's really simple. It's kind of a website press kit, but it's just johnbeland.net.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah,
And
I
so
love
you can visit that.
the picture on the front.
I'm on Facebook too, so
Yes. So yeah, I'll put all that in the
that'd be
comments.
great.
Yeah,
That'd be
but don't
wonderful.
go away, John, because I'm going to say goodbye to you separately, but we can say goodbye to everybody on Facebook.
Okay, goodbye everybody on Facebook.
Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you all again next Friday at 11:30.